we are back. Hello. Instead of 5 listeners, I have 7 listeners now. So shout out to all my 7 listeners, Thomas, and our newest listener, Trisha. Thank you, Trisha. Also, I think this is what's so beautiful about social media is you never know who you're going to connect with, and you never know like who hears you, who sees you, who watches you, and the effect that you have on other people. And Trisha was so kind, and she sent me 25 bucks and said like, "Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for the advice." I was like, "Damn, dude, I need more Trishas in my life." And I was thinking, man, if 100 people every month listen to my podcast, and out of the and 100 people just gave me 20 to 25 bucks, I could literally I could literally live my life off of that, which would be amazing. So I got to get to 100 people paying me 25 bucks a month for this podcast, and I will be set. So anyways, and then, Trisha, I just gave you a shout out. So hello, Trisha. I'm doing this. I do live on Instagram as well. So anyways, man, I have a lot to unpack tonight, which I'm super excited about. Um, I don't. All the topics are pretty heavy, and all the topics are connected. And so I guess I will start with this. So um, I've put out that ebook, and what I'm doing right now is I'm working on. I want to do another book, a little bit more in depth, a little bit more. I would say like formal in terms of like an actual kind of book, and it, the only reason I would say it's like self help slash personal transformation because it's really just about the story of my life and the things that have happened to me in my life and the tools that I've used to get myself in a better position. And so I have been collecting all these old notes that I have. I have so many, like I've talked about this before, I have so many journal entries in my phone and actual journals, like pen to paper journal, little notes in my phone that I make, little voice recordings, and I'm just starting to like gather them more and more and more and more over the past like this year. I spent a lot of time gathering them, and then last night I went through an old phone of mine to gather more notes, and I found this all these entries that I had when I did this like personal growth leadership thing back in 2018. I've talked about it before. It's called Hardcore. It's absolute trash. It's garbage. It's like literally. I hope the company shuts down because it was awful. Now there were some things that I can take away from that, but that doesn't negate the fact that it was really like a not good conference. But I had journal entries from that conference that I read through last night, and it hit me in a really interesting way. I have this. I'm the type of person that if there's something wrong with me, I'll just dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and I don't necessarily know when to stop. That's when I went down like the personal growth rabbit hole, and I was just reading book after book after book, going to set like different retreats and videos and when I started to get into my traditional ceremonies, ayahuasca, peyote, wachuma, all that stuff dissolved because I saw that it was a way for me to not only continuously dig at myself, but it kept me living inauthentically because I like was always working towards something in myself. There was always an angle to me. And now when I meet people like that, it's very interesting because there's a lot of inauthenticity because I look at my time going through that, I can pick the language out from the how I was, and then when people interact with me in that way, it's this inauthentic. Let me find the right word. Let me find the right phrase. Let me find the right answer. And so I don't vibe with those things anymore. Videos like that, speeches like that. But it served a purpose in my life. Now, I say all that because when you gather those tools, I think one of the most potent things from that time of my life is you do create a self-awareness. Now, to me, it's been very hard between self-awareness and like self-abuse. to where I'm constantly digging at myself. I'm not good enough. I need to do more. I need to be more perfect. And over the past, I would say 3 years, 4 years, I've really taken the foot off that gas pedal and just let myself be way more human. And finding that balance of letting myself off the hook versus holding myself accountable. That's a very that's a very hard line to walk. And I think I'm in a really good place right now in terms of that line. But last night I was going through my phone, gathering all these notes, and I found these journal entries from 2018. That's when this conference was. And part of the conference was like, side note, one of the things I didn't like about this conference is that these people were trying to coach you, but there was no context. They didn't take into context like who you are as a person or like what you've been through. And if you are someone who coaches people, if you are someone who is trying to better someone's life, you have to take into context people's upbringing, their current knowledge, what they've been through, quote unquote, possibly trauma, because you don't know what they know, or you don't know maybe why they are the way that they are. And if you just start randomly doing things, you could really hurt people. And that's what ended up happening in this seminar. People got really hurt psychologically and spiritually now, stepping back and looking at it, and myself included. And so I say that just because, just if you're a coach or whatever, it'd be like someone coming into OPT and just throwing them right into a workout and never asking them, have you ever worked with a trainer? Have you ever worked out? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you have any injuries? Do you have any health conditions I should know about? It'd be like just having someone walk in and throw them right into a workout. And so anyways, one of the drills that we did, we didn't necessarily know each other, or people didn't really know each other. Now, this was powerful because some of the people, when they gave me feedback on, as far as like how I came across, was pretty spot on. And I think part of that was I got into this argument with our teacher, right, kind of early in the beginning. And I mean, typical me, like arguing with my teachers or arguing with the coach. Like that's, I've been doing that since I was in third grade, like straight up. And anyways, some of the feedback they gave that I wrote in my journal was like feedback from the group. You're argumentative, you're standoffish, you're defensive, you're insecure, you act like a child. And I was like, I wrote that down, and I wrote it down a couple times throughout the course in my journal entries. And I bring this, and then I wrote in the journal, like, these are the ways that I can overcompensate. So I always feel like I have to overcompensate. And then I went into like a rabbit hole last night, like, oh my God, I haven't changed. I haven't changed any since 2018. I'm still the fucking biggest piece of shit that there is. Oh my God, like what the fuck? I know what I'm going to take in my intention into the next ceremonies. And so then, you know, there goes my pattern of beating myself up without, hold on a second, breathe, Joey, and like sort through all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I still have these patterns. They're like my go-to patterns: argumentative, defensiveness, standoffish, shut down, gets quiet, can be very cold. Those are still parts of me, but I will give myself credit to where it's not as sharp, it's not as intense, it's not as in your face. It can be, and especially over the past 5 years, I've had to, what I call, light people up with arrows. For sure, I have. But I also think that there's been times where I could have, and I don't. And learning about myself, started this journey in 2011 as far as like personal growth goes. A lot has shifted. I have better boundaries of myself and my tendencies as a person. And I feel like as I've continuously gotten better, my delivery with certain messages, though they can still be sharp, there's a lot more roundness to them. They're not as sharp unless I do it on purpose. And now I know when I have to be more sharp with people, and it's more intentional. So I'm collecting those notes last night, and I've been thinking about it since. And it's just really interesting. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about journaling is you can go back and reflect on, you know, certain patterns or thoughts and ways that you think and believe. And some of it might have changed. You might disagree with yourself. You might 100% agree with yourself. You might, you know, not have the same thoughts or philosophies that you once did. So I think you actually become your best guide as far as what you need to work on. And so, like, for a few hours, I just sat last night thinking about it. And again, my first immediate instinct is, oh, yeah, I haven't changed a bit. And then I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Don't. Because if I go that route, then I just dive into, I'm a piece of shit. I need to work harder. I need to grow more. Everything I do is wrong. I'm the worst communicator ever. And I know that's not true, but that's my pattern, right? That stems from not good enough and worthlessness. And so you cling to something that you can focus your attention on. And then me, I can be very impulsive and I just want to dig because I want to quote unquote fix. And that is a very insidious pattern to break. And it's very hard even for me to make sure that I don't do that. And so after I woke up this morning, I was like, thinking on it more. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting because some of these patterns emerged, just recently with this conversation that I had. Now, I'm going to preface this conversation with the forgiveness piece. So shout out to Trisha again. She had sent me a DM and asked me about like forgiveness. She had listened to a couple of my previous podcasts. I sent her some my free ebook, and I just started to ask her about forgiveness. When you start to work on yourself, the most important thing that you can do is ask yourself questions about the topic or idea that you have from many different angles. And I try to do that as like when I'm guiding people. I try not to say, do it like this, think like this. I try to create awareness around people. Why do you think like that? Where did that come from? What are your thoughts on this? How does it make you feel? What have you tried before? So then you're gathering information. And then from there, maybe you can make a suggestion or guide them or prompt them or, send them in a good direction for them to chew on these questions. So then they ultimately end up having an understanding on how it applies to them in their life, whatever insert topic, idea, philosophy, emotion. So she was asking me about forgiveness. And so in 2021, shout out Rach, one of my 7 listeners and one of my 5 friends. She had asked me this really profound question about forgiveness, and I made a video about it. And I recorded it. And a lot of these things I record so that I can share them later. If someone wants a more in-depth question, like I can't tell you how many times I've made a podcast now and someone has a question about something, I just send them an episode of a podcast that I made. And then when they listen, they have a better understanding, or then we can further the conversation and they have a better understanding of what it is that they're working through. So I made this video about forgiveness and I sent it to her. Now, I've watched it. This is my 3rd time watching it all the way through, but I haven't watched it for maybe a year. And I rewatched it, and I agree with everything that I said in there. Not because I want to be right, not because my ego's like, damn, Joey, you're so smart. Because I like to go back and see, has something changed? Did I make a mistake? I have no problem. I in the same journal entry that back in 2018, I wrote this in the journal. I said, I'm always right, but I also never have a problem with being wrong. And so that's why I go back and re-listen to things. I re-listen to podcast episodes. I reread journal entries. I go re-listen to videos I made just to make sure that, oh yeah, no, either I still agree with that or it's evolved, or I don't agree with what I had said and I need to update my idea about insert, again, topic, emotion, philosophy, my point of view. And it's interesting because going back and listening at it now, the only thing I would have changed, I get excited when I talk about these topics. I'm very passionate about some of these topics I talk about. And there's still a little bit of, for me, like if you wronged me and you don't understand how it made me feel, if you don't understand my point of view, there's still kind of like a little bit of like, man, fuck you. Be like, you're dumb. And this video that I made, I literally, it's so crazy how people, conversations, situations will continuously show up in your life until you break that pattern. And so I went back and I listened to that video about, you can go, if you want the video on forgiveness, I'll send it to you. So just let me know and I'll send it to you. And it was funny because, man, I was like, oh, if the only thing I would have changed was because I know that I have an intense personality. I know that about myself. And so watching that, I probably could have turned down the intensity, but I mean, if I were to talk about forgiveness, I could do it now and it's not going to be as intense. That's it. Everything else I agreed with. And forgiveness is very, it's so deeply tied to resentment and anger. And if you can't wrestle with resentment and anger, which ultimately is like sadness and rejection, and again, you can go, you're going to know your own layers with that. You can't just go right to forgiveness. You have to unpack many different layers before you can actually forgive someone. And another one of my journal entries I'm putting together, it was like, forgiveness is a messy process. And if you're unwilling to get messy, then forgiveness is not going to happen. And now for me, I have no problem getting messy. It's like I've lived my life very messy. And so I'm very familiar with that, the mess that I've created. And I'm very comfortable cleaning up messes that I've made. What I'm not okay with is when people make a mess and then they expect me to clean up my mess and clean up their mess for them. And that's, I think, what has evolved, because in the video that I put out, my frustration with the guy who sent me these messages was he's so disassociated from how he made me feel, how he treated me, how he disposed of me, how he made me feel less than when I worked for him in his company, and the other owner, who is still a coward to this day. He never took responsibility for his actions. He just wanted to sprinkle nice words. And so the whole video is about that. And it was just like, here's how you ask for forgiveness, and then here's how you can grant someone forgiveness. And so this ties into what my dream, my three-headed snake dream. Because it was like the same conversation. Now, if you go back and listen to the podcast of this year, you're going to hear about my heartbreak. You're going to hear about Joey B's heartbreak this year. Now, this individual reached out to me about a month and a half ago, and this individual sent me a voice note. And when I listened to this voice note, the first thing that I felt, I didn't get excited. I didn't get sad. I didn't get angry. I didn't get bitter. None of those emotions came to me, which was very surprising for me because it was so recent still. But I guess just because I'm in a really good space emotionally, and I'm just like, wow, like great. Like I didn't have any reaction. And then when I listened to the voice note, I felt that the person, it was just so inauthentic, like disconnected from reality, like disconnected from, hey, do you realize not only what you did, do you realize the last time that I saw you, what went down? And you speaking this now is like you're disconnected. And so I didn't say anything. I just was like, that's not really a big deal. I talked to my best friends about it, and they always, the reason that these people are so important to me, so like Ryan and Rachel and Stephanie and Serene, because especially Ryan and Rachel, because they've known me for so long, and they know me in a way that they don't know the Joey now. They know the Joey then, and they know the Joey now. And so they know where I can go inside of myself in terms of resentment, anger, bitterness, defensiveness, anger, fighting, argumentative, cold, standoffish. They know all of that. So then they can give me a really good kind of view on me. And, I talked to them about it and they're like, well, how do you feel? And I was just like, I just don't really feel like responding. It's just like not really a big thing for me. I'm just like, whatever. Especially because in the voice memo that she had sent, there was no like substance. There was no depth. So I'm like, what do you want? There's nothing for me to say to that. I have said my piece. And so whatever. So a month and a half goes by and this dream, I want to say it happened last week or the week before. It hasn't been long. So this is the beautiful thing about dreams if you study your dreams, okay? And I'm always talking about it. So in this dream, I'm at OPT and the girl, her sister, and her mom show up at OPT, but the door's locked. And they start like shaking the handle. Like, let us in, let us in. And I go to the door. I'm like, what do you want? They're like, let us in. We want to talk. And I'm like, no, I'm not letting you in. What do you want? And the girl and her sister are like, the mom isn't saying anything. And the girl and the sister are like, let us in. We just want to talk to you. We just want to talk to you. And I was like, no, just tell me right now. Say it through the glass. And they're like, no, just let us in. And I was like, no. And so I'm like going back and forth. And I'm like, all right. So I open the door and the main girl just like walks right by me, just like walks right into OPT. The sister says something crazy to me about Ryan. And I start talking to the sister. Like, why would you say that? You can't, you're full of shit. That's a fucking lie. And it was like a distraction. And while the main girl was like walking into OPT, and so then I pull her back. I'm like, you can't come in here. You're not allowed in here. And then I'm looking at the mom and I'm like, why aren't you doing anything? Get your daughters in check. Say something. Say something. And then the sister again says something like outlandish. And I'm like, that's not true about Ryan. And then the girl is like trying to walk into OPT and I'm like pulling her back. And I'm like trying to yell at the mom to say something. Like, get your daughters in check. What are they doing? You guys can't even be in here. And then the main girl goes into another part of OPT and starts crying. And then I'm like, I'm calling the cops. I'm calling the cops. And then I wake up from my dream. Now, I call this dream the three-headed snake dream because the feminine represents the serpent. Now, all those feminists out there and all you girls every time get mad at me, like, why is a girl always that? Like, this is deep psychology, not only through psychologists. You can take it up with Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche. You can also take it up with like the Sumerians, like the first written story of humanity. The woman in the water was a serpent dragon. That's just how psychology shows up. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just that's what it is. And so it's a three-headed snake, or you could say a three-headed dragon in my dream. Now, it shook me. So I woke up. I started getting ready for the day. I was like breaking it all down. And part of it was as I'm talking it out with Rachel. I'm talking it out with Serene. I start to unravel. I'm like, oh, this dream represents the parts of this girl. Those are parts of her personality that I know to be true. And instead of listening to my intuition, instead of listening to things at the very beginning, I didn't listen to my intuition. I should have kept boundaries. I should have held my ground. And so I was like, oh, but I also took it as these are parts of me that are disassociated, that will just go through a situation, that can get very defensive. That was the sister telling me something crazy, outlandish, and then it distracts me. My anger can distract me. My need to be right can distract me. My need to defend my friends can distract me. My lack of patience can distract me. And so then I'm like, oh no, dream is all about me. This is like all about me. And then one of the things that I'm working on this year is the year of the heart, which one of those words for me is courage. The courageous masculine, right? And we're not talking male, female. We're talking energies here. The courageous masculine goes out and confronts the chaos, the dragon. It doesn't let it into its personal space. And too many times in my life, I wait for things to happen to me before I take action. I wait for a confrontation to hit me and then I take action. Versus there's a situation outside, quote unquote, of OPT. The door's locked. Hey, you guys can leave. I'm not letting you in. Or I'm going to call the cops. This is all dream state right now, right? Or I could have said, I'll meet you guys outside. And I could have came out front. Now, the conversation, they can't get behind me. I can see all of them and what they're trying to do. And if anyone tries to do something shady, I can take the proper course of action. But as soon as I let them in and they bum rush the door, now I'm on the defense. And again, I'm looking at it as this is me as a person. And when you have dreams, when you can extrapolate those meanings and messages to yourself, you understand yourself really on a deep level. When I look at the notes that people from that course, sometimes part of my, I would say, character defects, if I'm not, how do I word this? Sometimes, and I talk about this, I can be addicted to responding to a certain situation in one way, instead of responding to a situation in a way that I know is the best version of me. I can always revert back to an old way of communicating. And so then that's my dream. Like now I'm yelling. Now I'm like, get out of here. I'm calling the cops. I'm talking to the mom. Why don't you say something? And now I'm only communicating in one way. And so part of my character defect is I can still fall into those patterns. And so then I'm absorbing it. I'm absorbing the dream. And I get ready to go into the sauna. And I'm like, oh man, me not responding is like me not just confronting and having a conversation with this individual. Like, what do you want? And so I go into the sauna and it was like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to talk about your voice memo and what it is that you want to say. So I get out of the sauna, go on with my day. And I text this person and I said, hey, I'm ready to talk. Let me know. And already from the jump, the reason I bring up the forgiveness video, because the guy who texted me that, he's so unaware of the situation. And I think those are things that just light me on, like just fucking irritate me. Like, how can people be so dumb? Especially if you've hurt somebody or betrayed somebody. And I'm speaking from experience because I've hurt a lot of people in my life. I've betrayed a lot of people in my life. So, but I've never gone into a situation when I hurt someone or betrayed someone, thought it was all good, ignored it, like just totally airheaded. The reason I brought up that forgiveness video is because the guy who, wronged me, when he texted me multiple times, he's just an idiot. He doesn't get it. So then I'm like, bro, you're just fucking dumb. And so when I texted this individual, she was like, oh, in person or on the phone? I'm like, on the phone. Like in my head, I don't want to see you. We can make this phone call short, because in the voice memo was like, I have a lot to say to you. Now, the reason I'm sharing this story with everybody is because of the lessons that I extrapolated from it. And then hopefully you guys can extrapolate lessons in your own life. That's why I share these things, these stories of mine, like in these podcasts, on my journal entries, in my poetry, like, because I'm sharing with you guys tools that I've learned in hopes that maybe you don't make the same mistakes I do, or we all make mistakes. And so here, when you make a mistake, here are some things to help you get out of the mistake that you've made and clean up. And so I was like annoyed, like, I'm on the phone, duh. Anyways, so I call her, and from the very beginning, this individual was just so unaware and disconnected from the reality of the situation. Like, if you betrayed somebody and you lied to somebody and you broke somebody's heart, I would assume, and yeah, all those people out there, you shouldn't assume. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. I get that. But being human, it's part of it. So I would assume the energy of the conversation from the beginning would be a little bit more remorseful, a little bit more like, man, I should just like handle this conversation with joy, with some softness, with some care, with some love, with some awareness, because I really hurt him. I really like caused him some damage emotionally. Now, it ended up working great for me because of the lessons that I've learned. But if I wasn't me and I wasn't on dieta and I wasn't on this path, I didn't learn these lessons because of you. I learned these lessons because of me, and I knew how to alchemize the things that had happened between us. And ultimately it did. I learned really profound lessons in my life from this whole situation, especially around listening. And you can go back and listen to my episodes in the jungle, like what this actually ultimately brought me. So anyways, from the very jump, the person was very disconnected, disassociated, out of touch, like emotionally, how this conversation would take place. And so I'm already like on edge. I can feel it. And this is circling back to my notes, because at like probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes into the conversation, she was like, you're just always so defensive and argumentative. And I was like, now last night when I'm going through the notes and revisiting this conversation in my head, I'm like, yeah, there's parts of me that are that. And when she had said that, I took a breath and I just stayed silent. And I don't know how long the silence was. And she's like, are you going to say anything? I said, look, you said you wanted to say, you had a lot to say to me, so you can just say it. I'm just going to listen. And then it was just like a whole lot of nothingness. It was just, again, inauthentic nothingness. And then I was like, look, I'm giving you guys a condensed version, just the extrapolating the nuggets that I got. This is literally what I talked about in my forgiveness video. So then I told her, I said, hey, listen, here's what's happening right now. You're disconnected. And I'm trying to explain the situation to you so you understand. Because not only is it coming off as sociopathic, it's like if you were to just step back and look at the bigger picture, it's like psycho. Like it's literally, I'm not calling you psycho, but I'm telling you, if you just looked at from my angle, you'd be like, this is psycho. And if I did these things to you, someone you're like, people on the outside would be like, Joey is psycho. And so I'm trying to explain to her, listen, I am trying to help you in this situation because you're asking me why I'm defensive, or I'm asking you why I'm argumentative. And I'm trying to tell you this is why, because you're not understanding the situation as far as what is happening for me. I'm trying to explain how this whole thing is occurring to me, so that way we can have a conversation. Because if you're not understanding where I'm coming from, or you're unwilling to step into my shoes, we can't have a conversation that is meaningful or purposeful. And so I'm like trying to break this thing down, like and just nothing, just so disconnected. And so then again, the conversation, I was like, look, I don't hate you. I don't wish any ill will upon you. I already have forgiven you. And my frustration right now is just what is happening here, as far as you're not understanding the heaviness of the conversation, what actually went down. You're not taking responsibility for anything. You're just trying to brush it off. And okay, that's fine. You're going to handle whatever you're going to handle with however you're going to handle it. And okay, so if you have nothing less to say, I don't have anything to say. I've said everything I needed to say. I said everything I needed to say to you last time that I saw you. I'm saying everything that now, like in this conversation, that I need to say to you. And this isn't going anywhere. Like, because there's no workability because of the unwillingness for you to not only see how this is occurring, but not you just won't even take responsibility. And I get it because I'm defensive and I can get argumentative and I'm intense. I get it. People can get, and it's happened to me so many times. People will like, oh, well now, like, I don't know what to say. And I'm like, man, it's not my responsibility for you to hold your hand through hard conversations. Like, if you're going to come with me with a hard conversation, then be ready for a hard conversation. Like, I'm not yelling. There's no swear words. There's no personal malicious attacks. It's an intense conversation. So like, that's just what it is. So anyways, I was just like, yeah, so okay, take care. Good luck with everything. And then I was sitting there, I'm like, damn, dude, you know what's so crazy? Is the dream of the three-headed snake literally played out the exact way it was. Disassociated, trying to just go right into like everything's all good. The energy that she carried into the conversation was like, hey, everything's all good. How are you doing? Let's catch up. Literally, that was like how it was. And I'm like, oh my God, you're you're crazy. That was her walking right into the studio, not saying hi, not saying hello. And then her saying certain things that were nonsense to distract me, to get me into like my defensiveness or argumentative. That was her sister blabbering, right? And then the divine feminine, which is her mother in the dream, not saying anything. That's her inability to be authentic. Like, her inability to be authentic was why the mom in the dream didn't say anything. She just stands back and watches everything unfold, and then blames everyone else. Like, it's not my fault. It's not my doing. Everyone's going to do whatever they're going to do. And I'm just going to stay here scared, quiet, and observing. And I'm like, oh my God, that was crazy that I had the dream last night. And then I call you, we have this conversation, and it's literally how everything played out. Like, what the fuck? And then it just kind of was like, dang, dude, I just, people are going to people. People are going to be people. And the frustration, again, with like the forgiveness thing, you can forgive people. It doesn't mean they're back in your life. It doesn't mean like you're going to be friends. It just means that you don't have any ill will towards them or bad feelings towards them. And I don't have any ill will or bad feelings towards her. I hope she gets it together. Just like the guy, in 2018. I hope he gets it together. Now, if I were a gambling person, I would say that he hasn't figured it out. He hasn't grown. And it's just hard because most people don't. And I was just like, man, that dream was crazy, because now talking to her, and she's had, I don't know, 7 months of reflection, and you still don't get it. That's very interesting to me. That's the disassociation. That's the sociopath. And then your inability to be authentic. Probably because many different traumas in people's life, many of the experiences you've had in your life, whatever. And so then for you, if you're anyone out there listening, if you've hurt someone or wronged someone, the first thing that you have to do is acknowledge what you did and put yourself in that person's position. How it would have occurred to them. And then you have to give them the opportunity to express that. Like, man, how did it make you feel when I did this? And I've done this. This is why I'm like very passionate about the topic forgiveness. How did it make you feel when I cheated on you? That I didn't listen to you? That I lied to you? How did it make you feel, Mom, growing up? And I would say things like, I fucking hate you. You're the worst fucking mom ever. And I made you feel like a piece of shit. Like, how did that make you feel, Mom? You know what I mean? It's like, I've had those conversations, real fucking conversations. How does it feel to, like, I let you down as a friend? That I betrayed you as a friend? How did that make you feel? And then the person can give me their 100% whatever they want to say to me. And then I can say, will you forgive me? And I won't ever do that to you again or anyone again. I'll do my best. And then the conversation can happen, When they say forgiveness is about you, forgiveness is only about you when you recognize and feel the impact that you left on the other person. That's the quote unquote justice. Justice isn't getting someone back. Justice isn't, I hope karma fucks them over. Justice is like they get to express themselves in 100% authenticity about how the situation vibrated into them. And then from there, a new beginning can happen. And you have to look at all the ways that you've contributed to that situation, which, you know, in the conversation I had with her on the phone, I said, I've already acknowledged the ways that I drove you away from me, where I didn't listen, or where my fears, the fears that I shared with you around women and intimacy, like I'm sharing those things because these are things that I worry about. You know, was there a better way I can communicate them? Yeah. Was there, more discussions to be had? Yeah. Could I need to be a better listener? Yes. I need to be more not as stubborn and arrogant. Absolutely. I have acknowledged that, and that's my mistake. And so that's why the diet was so powerful for me in these ways, So, anyways, it was like really interesting that shout out again to Trish asked me about forgiveness, and then I sent her that video. I rewatched the video, and it was like, oh yeah, this person, these two people, the guy and the girl, they're literally the same people in my life karmically, as far as disassociated, uh, sociopathic, meaning they're not in touch with reality or how they occur in reality, and they just want to walk around like nothing's happened, numb, checked out. And then when things don't go their way, they want to like blame other people. So like they want to quote unquote cry about it or get attention about it or be hurt or be wounded or whatever, without acknowledging the damage that they've caused. And that, like, the guy, the message, he was just like, man, I'm seeing a mental coach and I'm in a really good way, and I was meditating, I was thinking about you. It's like, if you were thinking about me, then you would actually ask me how I'm doing in far as emotionally and what had transpired between us. And like, I'm in a good way, no thanks to you. Again, I'm in a good way because of me. And so I think that's what clogs a lot of people up with resentment and anger, and like patterns they just keep happening. So that's why, like, I shared that video with her and hope, whatever forgiveness Trisha is like looking for, she gets. And then anyone out there that's struggling with forgiveness. And most of the time you have to ask, like, the thing is like, if you're not willing to ask for forgiveness and step into the other person's shoes, it's never going to happen. Forgiveness isn't, it has to be given and received. It can't just be thrown out. It can't just be, oh, I forgive you, and then we move on. That's inauthentic, which is, again, I mean, the world at large. So anyways, yeah. So that's what's as far as like the lessons that I'm learning, and I can still work on ways that I can get really defensive or argumentative because I get insecure, because I feel like I'm getting attacked. And that's like a pattern of mine. It's like, man, if I feel like I'm being attacked, or I feel like, you know what I'm saying, someone's trying to do something like shady or manipulative or whatever, it's I can just attack or defend, because the other end of that is I just shut down and grow repressed. And I don't, that's like a thing for me, is I never want to be repressed anymore. I never want to like just push something under the rug. And there's parts of me now where I look at, okay, I can get better. I can continuously work on rounding out the edges of my defensiveness, or I can work on getting better at this in the moment. Hey, I'm getting defensive right now. Hold on a second. Just let me like breathe for a second, and acknowledging this is why I'm getting defensive, or this is why I'm getting argumentative. And I've done that in situations like, hey, I feel like I'm shutting down, or like literally these are inner tools that you can do. And in certain moments, I could see where, yes, I do need to improve on that. Or I can get real short-tempered sometimes, or like I'm losing patience with people. And in those moments, I'm getting way better at just like step back, take a breath. This person, what is it that I am not communicating, or in a way that I am communicating that they're not picking up on? That's how you begin to take ultimate responsibility of the direction of your life. And so it was just, again, rereading those notes, rewatching that video, having this freaking dream right into this conversation. It was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Just like closing out the year of old patterns that need to die off. So, yeah, man. Whew. Anyways, okay. I've been wanting to talk about the libido. So we're jumping into libido. We're exiting that other stuff and we're into the libido, baby. It's funny because everyone thinks libido is sex, about sex, because that's how the world teaches it. And for the longest time, I thought libido was about sex too. And it's not. It's a piece of it. Now, we're going to get into energetic waters. You don't have to believe anything I'm telling you. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to read about it. But what I will tell you, if you study it and you look into it, you're going to find so many quote unquote coincidences that end up happening in your life that you're going to be like, maybe I should ask some more questions about this, or maybe I shouldn't just like blow it off as no big deal. Okay, so libido, root chakra, it's called life force energy, kundalini energy, prana energy. It's the vitality that your life manifests, or the energy that carries you through life. Now, libido is your creativity, your passion, your expression, your ideas, your imagination, your creativity, your ability to be authentic. That's all libido, life force, root chakra, kundalini, prana, vitality. That's all the same energy. Now, the reason it's tied to sexual energy, because the most powerful force in terms of on planet Earth is sexual energy. It's how we are created. That's how we create. That's how we are created. And there's nothing more powerful than creating human life. There's literally nothing more sacred, profound, and beautiful than creating human life. So that's why it's the root. But what people don't understand is that when you mismanage it and you give into just pleasure, you give into like your animal instincts over and over and over again, you don't actually end up living. You can't listen to your intuition because you're ran by your impulses. You can't live into your heart, your authenticity, because you're ran by your impulses and you're scared, and it takes time to develop and discipline those things. And so you ended up just kind of like you have no spine, because life force energy, the kundalini, the prana, whatever you want to call it, it rises up the spine. And it's funny because I always, for me, I make these I call it libido smoothies, or my libido pasta I've been eating. And it's just because it gives you that energy, that good energy. Now, it's like when I'm in that energetic, right? When people are in that energy, yeah, if you're not a sexual person, right? If you've had some root chakra damage, you're not really sexual. A lot of people are not comfortable with their sexual energy. But like when you're feeling good and you're happy, you're like, man, I wouldn't mind having sex today. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it feels good. It's amazing. It's fun. It's exciting. It's pleasurable. And if that's not the kind of sex that you're having, I'm sorry. And like, that's not a good experience for you, because that's what sex should be, those things, right? But that same energy can be used towards my podcast, journaling, poetry, dancing, singing, writing, serving others. That same energy can be directed in many different ways if you know how to discipline it and channel in it. It's the same energy, just moved to a different way. But because of the world that we live in, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of ways that we numb out. There's a lot of ways we just give into our carnal pleasures. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm not judging anyone. I'm telling you, I know this stuff because I've been through it. And that's why you practice things like celibacy. And I'm telling you right now, out of all the spiritual things I've ever done, vision quests and ceremonies and sweat lodges and fasting and my jungle dietas, when I first started practicing celibacy, that 8 months of celibacy was the absolute hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I realized I've let that part of my life just control my life. Now, Meaning, as long as I could be having sex or orgasming, I can still get things done. I can still whatever. But if I channel that and I'm not allowed to have, because when you're celibate, no sex, no orgasm, no nothing. I was very, very tired those 8 months because all I kept thinking about was like, okay, I got to stay celibate. Don't think about this. Don't think about this. Don't think about this. And all of my uh, psychological mental thoughts were trying to repress this part of me that I've never repressed before. And that was very, 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 very tiring. I didn't really have any creativity. I didn't really want to write. I didn't really want to I was just like, blah. But the second time I did it, the 3 months, and this last time I did 5 months of celibacy, oh, dude, I was writing, I was singing, I was dancing. I was on top of it because I knew that, oh, wow, there's another way to channel this part of my life in a completely different way. And it's unbelievable. And so the libido, you guys, is about that. It's the energy that gives you everything in your life, possibilities, and your ability, your spine, to direct that. That's why I call your spine, your identity, how you show up, your integrity. Your spine carries it out. And the more you're able to carry it out, you live into your heart, your voice, your quote unquote, your third eye, your crown. Even if you don't believe in those things, I'm just saying, when you channel that energy, you are able to create. You're able to speak from your heart. It's easier to love, to forgive, to have compassion, to live wisdom, not knowledge. I'm not a fan of knowledge. I'm a fan of wisdom. That's another reason why I share these experiences, because this is where I get the wisdom from, to make sure I don't do stupid things in the future, to ensure that I am changing, or I'm able to see clearly what I still need to work on. And so when you work on this and you understand these things, that's why addiction, people that struggle with addiction, one of the things that this 9-month course I'm gonna lead, I'm gonna talk to them about fasting. I'm gonna talk to them about doing bursts of celibacy. I'm gonna talk to them about giving certain things up, because when you give certain things up, the real stuff comes to the surface. So those 8 months of celibacy, I had so much fucking shit come to the surface that I would just push down. Oh, a little orgasm here, some orgasm here, a little sex here. I just bury it. But when you channel that, all of a sudden, all of these other things rise to the surface, and you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? And that's how it was for those 8 months. That's how it was for my 3 months. That's how it was for the 5 months. But what happens is you create a different relationship to your body, and how you're using that energy in the world. And you're able to create more. You're able to do more projects, complete things start to finish. And you have more integrity, aka the spine. You have your identity, the way you show up. That's why I say the spine is like the way you show up. Your heart's open. You're not overcompensating in your, i.e., lower back. You're upright. You're erect, right? You're strong. You're not easily influenced. You have a solid foundation. But that only happens when you learn that your libido energy gives force to all that you do. And so I just have fun with it. I just talk about it because I know people are like, what is libido? He's always talking about sex. I'm like, no, dude, it's not that. That's the smallest piece of what libido energy is. But I'm always telling people, man, when people why you have, you're always so energetic, you're always so happy, you're always so this. I'm like, yeah, dude, I got libido energy just pumping through my life 24/7. And it's a beautiful thing when you know how to channel it. And it doesn't mean you have to be celibate all the time. It doesn't mean that. But I encourage bouts of celibacy so you learn about that. And then you can learn how to navigate it, how to work with it, not to shy away from it. I got all this good energy. What can I do today? It's I'm going to do these fucking tire pulls that feels like my legs are going to fall off. I can put out this podcast. I can write this poem. I can sing this song. I can work on my dance moves. I can, have beautiful conversations. I can get all my to-dos done. I can be more integrity. I can be in more integrity. And these are all practices, when I talk about the sauna helps, the ice helps, the nutrition helps, the good sleep helps, the journaling helps, the fasting helps, the celibacy helps, the sweat lodge helps, the ceremonies help, the eating good helps, the watching good things help, the surrounding yourself with good people helps, the beautiful environment helps. That all helps to not only learning how to navigate your libido, but putting it in a way that you're able to live, that the heart path ends up being your whole life, not just a piece of it. Properly channeled libido energy becomes the lights that guide your heart path. I just had this vision walking down the road, and there's like these lights, like these bright white lights. Ding, 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 ding. Like, that's that walking down that spine. That's the heart path. And it's channeled when I can control that energy. That's like what I'm seeing right now. So that's my dream. That's libido. That's forgiveness. That's the spine. And I'm going to go deep on the spine coming up. It's just the spine's going to keep spining because I'm in that part of my life now. And it's only taken me 38 years to get there. Why am I so slow? All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, I'm trying to get to those 100 listeners. They can donate $20, $25 a month. I can retire and just live off this podcast, sharing my life and the craziness of it all. If you like it, share it, pass it along. You can find me on social media at _Apache_alchemist. That's where I just kind of share my stupid memes, my poetry, my philosophical thoughts. And then at OPT Fitness is like my business fitness page. So anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We out. Shoo.